Good afternoon. 1st of May, May Day. Not exactly the day I like to celebrate because this is the day the communists celebrate their founding, their world revolution. And of course, the communist revolution was launched from Manhattan and perpetrated against the poor Tsar and his family and all of those poor people in Russia. Yeah, boys and girls. They planned it and launched it from our shores. Jacob Schiff was the main culprit in that whole thing. Yes, he's related to Adam Schiff. I believe it's his grandson. Got to get rid of that whole entire family. I'm sorry, but they shouldn't be in office. They shouldn't be allowed to do what they did. I think it's a crime what they did to the Tsar and his family. I think it's a crime what they did to Russia. I think it's a crime stealing the wealth, the gold of the Russian people. Especially after the Tsars and Russia helped us become an independent nation. And we had to defend ourselves against the King of England. And then later helped us again during our own Civil War, which turned out to be a really sorry-ass deal. I've been learning more things about it, namely that the Jesuits were behind the South. Abraham Lincoln was also one big conspiracy. There's some wild stories out there, and I've told some myself. But Abraham Lincoln actually was a little bit better guy than what I thought. But he didn't have much of a hope against those assassins, those Vatican assassins, and the groups that are behind the Vatican. The Catholics are another owned group, in case you're wondering. I guess we're all owned by these people. They run us behind the scenes. What did I get on here for? I had something important to say to you. I did post a video earlier and it's still being processed. They said something about the audio quality or sound quality or video quality would be better once it had been processed. I hope I didn't screw up and say something untoward again. Don't want to be doing that stuff. Put my motorhome up for sale and a friend says she wants it. Well, I don't know how that'll go, but it would be nice. I put damn near $40,000 into it, and I'm probably going to get 25 out of it at best. And if she gives me the help getting up to my new rig, then I'll probably make it a little bit sweeter deal for her. I think it's a good, solid rig. I usually don't sell Porsches to friends. Likewise with motorhomes, we don't sell them to friends either because they take so much upkeep. But in her case, she's had a couple of weird twists of fate, and I think this would give her some independence and give her a footing and give her the ability to take better care of herself for sure. She doesn't have as much stuff as I have, so this is going to be a great rig for her. Listening to all of these videos, trying to take everything in, it's rather difficult. I don't have the knowledge to be able to tell you much, except that I think the Bible is a much more credible book than what you realize, than what I realize. The sad thing is the devil really does know the scripture better than any of us does by a long shot. And the devil and his children use this stuff against us. And I have a sneaking suspicion, after listening to Michael Fessarian, that the book of Revelations in particular was crafted up by a bunch of witches. The women who are in power, running the world behind the scenes. I never would have thought that until he mentioned it, went into the hows and whys of it. And it makes a lot of sense, because that goddess Isis, which that French gift out there in New York Harbor represents, that's kind of who rules over us. Give me your huddled masses. That famous saying by a woman who was an advocate for allowing us to collect the refuse of the world. Well, okay, so we kind of are the refuse of the world. Let's accept that premise for a second. Now, Georgia, folks in Georgia, Oglethorpe started you. And I don't even know if that's being taught in the schools anymore, but Oglethorpe wanted to carve out the state of Georgia, and he needed manpower. So his proposal to the king was, I'll take your prisoners. I'll take the worst, the people that you want rid of. I'll take them over there with me, and I'll let them earn their way. I'll let them earn their reprieve. And they helped him carve the cities out of that vegetated place down there. I think mostly that meant they had backbreaking work to do, like building roads, bridges, things like that. So I think it was hard labor, but it also was out in the fresh air and gave them a fresh start on life. And so a lot of you people in Georgia are descended from criminals. I don't know how all y'all get along. I've met some Georgians, especially your peaches, your women. Oh, wow. I'm not going to tell. I'm just not going to tell. I don't want to be associated with that anymore. Melt my heart, but stomp it, walk all over it at the same time, too. Anyway. Yeah, we have had some humble beginnings, and we brought them some people that aren't compatible, especially in the last century, and that's ongoing now. And that's just a shame. But I'll tell you what I would love to do if I was president. And remember, I don't want to be president. I want a little bit more dictatorial power than that. I want to get stuff done. We need a minimum 10-year moratorium on all immigration. Minimum. While we sort out what we already have here. And so I would immediately put that in place. As a matter of fact, I would lock the borders down. I would tell these illegals that are here, you're not getting out until you're processed. We're going to process you from one end to the other. We want to know when you got here, what you did here. We want to know the monies you made here and sent back home. We want to know the crimes you've committed. We want to know the services, the welfare you've taken. We want to know about your frauds, the entitlements that you weren't entitled to. And also, I would rule immediately that just because you're born here doesn't make you an American citizen. If your parents don't have any citizenship standing, you don't have any citizenship standing. I don't care what your argument is. And I would make sure to process each one of those people. And I would collect their biomarkers, whatever, their genetic material. I'd even tattoo them. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. I don't think before I say some things, but in other words, I'd make sure to be able to identify them in the future. And then I would take things a step further. I would tally up what they took from us. And I would send the bill to their country along with them and say, here's the balance that's due. We have a little bit of interest that's going to be collected on this. If you want to pay this off now, we'll give you the deal. If you want to pay it off later, well, there'll be a little interest in it. And I think that we've got that coming. I think that we have to do that in the name of justice. I also would take some of these fellows that have been here committing crimes and re-entering the country illegally, and I'd make sure they were permanently exiled. I wouldn't allow them in. I also would call for the original 13th Amendment to be enforced to the hilt. I'd get rid of these justices and get a new Supreme Court. I don't want any of them. I don't like any of them, to be honest with you. I'm an equal opportunity hater. You know, I just hate them all. What I hate is their bad behavior and their liberal politics. Some of the people I've represented before, the way they've refused to recuse themselves when there's an obvious conflict of interest and they shouldn't be able to vote on it. And then some of the nasty things they've said in public that were so racist, you know, about wise Latinas and stuff. Yeah, I'd be cutting them all pretty badly. And of course, since they've been getting paid by the Chi-Coms, I think that we ought to investigate them and look at what they've been taking from us and what they've been given or doing on behalf of their masters in the Orient. I probably would declare war against Mexico because Mexico's going to have a big bill and they're not going to want to pay it. And you remember that about 1915 that Mexico wanted to sell us that land that was at the bottom of our border, if you will, that straight line across Arizona. They wanted to sell all that land straight across the Gulf, across the peninsula, down the Baja Peninsula. We could have had all of that land, which would have given Arizona a port city on the Gulf, I think. I don't know if it's suitable to be a port city. Maybe it would just be a playground, but at least we could own it. Or we could bring in smaller vessels there and do something. But I also would build a pipeline from Mexico straight up to Yuma and build a refinery in Yuma, and I'd refine their crude oil. And I'd hold them accountable because on that big bill, I'm going to get repaid. Now, this would be doing the Mexican people a favor. I'm not going to steal their stuff, but they've been waging a war on us and invading us for a long time. So I think that we collect what's ours, we get what we have coming to us, and that's all. And then after that, we administer that pipeline and we give them the royalties on their oil. We buy the oil properly from them. I think that would be a good partnership, especially, it's going to create so many jobs for Mexicans. It'll help things out, but, there is a problem with all this. Mexico may turn out to be wealthier than we are. I know you think that's impossible. It is possible. This modern technology relies upon silver. This technologies they're suppressing, there's these little boxes, cubes, that sit outside your house and they power your house. You're not connected to wires. There's no transmission of electricity. It's all from this little box. And how do I know it existed? Well, my father went to the Matanuska, the electric utility up in the valley, and they presented this box and said they were going to be for lease. And I don't remember what the monthly charge was, but they weren't going to be owned by us. We weren't going to be able to buy them. We were just going to lease them from Matanuska Electric. And everybody was looking forward to this. And then the next year they disappeared. No more mention of them. One more of those odd things that happens that comes about. And I bet a lot of you out there got stories of things that they saw, and it's like, where did it go to? My dad was finance officer for the Army in Alaska. And one day a bale of money showed up. It was United States dollars in funny colors. And there was no explanation as to why it showed up, just that there it was at his office. And no, they had to put it in the vault. Okay. The crazy thing is that he never got an explanation as to what it was doing there and what they were planning on doing. But that was in about 1976. I'm just taking a guess at it. Might have been 1974. But the idea was they were going to do a money swap on us back then. Who knows what they had in that bale of money? Could you imagine a bale of money, straps around it to hold it all together? I didn't hear about a pallet, but I heard about a bale. Anyhow, that's one of those stories you wonder what happened to it as well. I'm thinking that we're going to be seeing some really weird fireworks going on. Things aren't happening that I think should be happening. I feel distraught. I think the country feels distraught. I really would like it if President Trump would step back in right about now. That would be wonderful. Kick this jackass out of office who doesn't belong there. Get rid of that entire administration. Call Putin up on the hotline and tell him, hey, let's talk. We talked in the past. We got along really well. We know you got a valid complaint. And we want you to be able to be heard. And we also want you to make it public. Take it in let's go to court. And let's get the evidence that you have and the charges you have against our people over here that have meddled, that have caused problems for you over there. Yeah, we need to fess up and we need to right this wrong because we owe Russia too much. We owe Russia our very existence. And I really want to see Alaska become independent. Alaska should be the peacemaker. Alaska must become the peacemaker. Technically, I think legally, Russia still owns Alaska. But the United States reneged on the deal. They were just supposed to lease Alaska for 100 years. I could be wrong about that. Check it out. I looked up Gull Island the other day to try to find out where it was in the North Slope, and I couldn't find it. I found it off from the Homer Spit. Homer Bay, Kachemak Bay is beautiful. I don't want them drilling oil there, to be honest with you. It's just too much of a beautiful playground. We used to go crabbing there all the time as a family. It was a wonderful thing to do. We'd catch the crabs, we'd eat them on the beach. They were fresh. They tasted so wonderful. And after the Exxon Valdez oil spill, it wiped out our crab fishery. I should have put a claim into it, but I didn't. My dad would never put a claim in. It was just not something that wasn't his style. But I was pretty upset about what happened. I never got a check. Actually, I just want the crab back. I don't want the money. It'd be nice to have my family back and do that again, but can't get them back either. Yeah, we go out to the Homer Spit. I went about spying on the guys who were bringing the crabs to the campground, meeting the crabs, wanted to know where they got them. So I actually went down there and found out where their happy hunting grounds were and what they did. And then we started to go down there, and we had to learn to separate the females from the males because you couldn't take the females. And they had to be a certain size. And we had to learn the tides, and when was best, which pools to go to. And the crabs were pretty fast. It was a lot of fun out there, in hip boots. I think it was hip boots with nets and buckets. And, we just gorged ourselves on crab then. I know it's not an approved food. Shellfish on the approved list for Adamic people. I haven't eaten in a long time, and I don't eat it now. I used to eat shrimp and pork. The reason you don't want to eat pork is because they were doing a lot of genetic experimentation a long time ago, pigs and men, and so we're actually too closely related to them. The meat is no good for us. It just digests too quickly to be any good to us. It deteriorates our bodies badly, and there's a reason in the Bible where it says to not even touch it. Not supposed to eat. Not supposed to just not eat it. You're not even supposed to touch it. There's a reason for that. Pigs will eat a man like you wouldn't believe. So they're not exactly what I call a clean animal. They got weird sweat glands out the end of their hooves, and they don't sweat anywhere else. And back when they wanted to do experiments for their launches into space or low orbit, whatever the case is, I don't think NASA ever gave us a straight answer. Never a straight answer. Anyway, I'm just rambling on here. I haven't used the Navage system yet today. I like using it first thing in the morning. Didn't sleep real good last night. I really think that I recommend it to you. Use the link that I provide you. Save yourself 20 bucks. Get that system and start knocking out some of what they're spraying us with, getting rid of some of the stuff that's in the air. You know, the plants even do a bunch of pollen on us, and man, I couldn't believe how much was coming out of my nose at first. And if I do it first thing in the morning, every morning, there's something. But if I wait, there's a lot more. I think once a day is good. They recommend twice a day so you can get the full effect. I'm getting the hang of it better. I highly recommend it. That way you can avoid inhaling these pollutants from ionized air. I myself intend upon getting my rig back out into the forest as soon as I can, because they don't spray that nearly as much as what they spray here. The sad thing is, and I do have to tell you this, USAA, my former insurance company, which I think are rat bastards, they're not to be trusted. They canceled their policies for property owners in California just before those fires a while ago. And I really think that they had advanced knowledge. At least it looks like they had advanced knowledge to me. And from what I hear, listening to Michael Tessarian, the insurance companies actually went as far as sending out the pirates, and the pirates were working for the insurance companies. So they were getting paid on both ends. It was extortion. That's where we get the term false flag. They'll put up a flag, a particular flag, and then when they get close to you, they'll run up the Jolly Roger, the skull and crossbones, which meant basically they were going to kill everybody on the ship. Anyway, privateers is what they like to call themselves. American had a bunch of privateers. Our Navy was nothing but privateers. You know, men that went out there on ships and did some havoc, unfortunately. So, one of my supervisors in the past, a very incredibly wonderful Southern gentleman, he told me that insurance came about from the strong arm industry, the protection racket. You know, the sheriff in Nottingham, you either paid him and you were protected, or they'd take your stuff. They'd steal from you. Well, it's the same way today with modern insurance companies. It's a protection racket. I don't think anybody should be required to buy any kind of insurance, especially not auto insurance. Just to tell you a little bit here, we're paying approximately 20% more in premiums because they have a lock on the market. How do I know that? I was in Alaska, and I had, it was summertime, and I remember where I was living just about. I can't quite remember the year of the day. USAA sent out a mass mailing to all of us policyholders. Tell your legislators to support making auto insurance mandatory, because then we're going to have more people paying into the system, and we're going to be able to lower your rates. 6 weeks before the session, that's the letter they pumped out. It was bullshit. Bovine excrement. And then, less than 6 weeks after the law went into effect and it was now mandatory, you had to buy insurance. You couldn't just start off your life without auto insurance and buy it when you could afford it. The law was written that if you had an accident and didn't make good on it, you had to have insurance. Or I think it was actually written if you were involved in an accident, you had whether or not you were at fault, you had to get insurance. And roads in Alaska are pretty bad. 1 out of every 4 of us is involved in an accident every year. It's pretty bad. They get to become ice sheets at times. It's kind of fun, but it's kind of scary. It's a little bit wilder than a roller coaster ride because when you smash up and hit, it's bad. It's no fun. Well, shortly after the bill passed, USAA sends me this wonderful letter that they send to everybody. We regret to inform you, but now that we've had to take on more risk, we regret to inform you that we have to raise your rates by 19.5%. Bunch of liars and thieves. And they canceled all those fire policies for homeowners in California just before those fires broke out a few years back. Remember those fires? Makes you wonder if the insurance companies are still in the same rackets they were before, the protection racket. And they know that you're going to have a calamity, so they cancel your insurance just before it happens. Wow, isn't that a coincidence? I don't know what to make of it. It just seems like it's too convenient a coincidence to me. Too convenient. A coinky-dink, huh? I don't think there's any coincidences. And I think, by the way, there was another piece of technology that was announced back in popular science when I was in high school. I went to Diamond. Diamond was a dirt road. It was on the outskirts back then. We had ice fog all the time. It was beautiful. It was cold. And the air was so clean that if a truck had been down the road, you could smell it. You could smell the exhaust, and you knew how long it had been since a vehicle had gone down the road just walking on it. And you had to walk slow, and it crunched really loud underneath your snow bunnies, underneath your boots and stuff. And you had to pace yourself on the inhale. Your nose kind of froze. The hairs in your nostrils, the inside of your nostrils kind of froze on the inhale, and on the exhale they thawed out. So you made sure to breathe through your nose so you would not get a frostbite nose. Anyway, where was I at? Diamond High School. Oh man, I'm going to have to beg off on this one. Sometimes the thoughts just keep on going. I don't get to them in time. I get a little sidetracked. I don't mind that very much. I'm really patient with other people. Just try to remind them where they were at. But in this case, you're not here to tell me and talk to me and cue me up as to where I was headed with that. The school's changed a lot. It makes me glad to have gone to school when I did, but I hated school. It was like a prison. They held us back. They really weren't very helpful at all. Even then, they were schools of indoctrination. But what's going on today is criminal. It's educational abuse. It's child abuse. It's even child sexual abuse. Child exploitation. The teachers' unions should be in jail for exploiting the children. We need to decentralize education. I would do that as president. I would get rid of that cabinet position immediately. I'd tell the states, it's up to you. And I'd tell the states, by the way, I think it's best that the counties handle it, and maybe even best that the communities handle it, that parents be allowed to band together and put their monies together and hire teachers. I don't think that I'm responsible for your child's education. If that's the case, then I want to be a dictator. I want to tell you what they're going to study and learn. Yeah, I'd hit them with the Bible. Yeah, I would. No problem with that. King James Version of the Bible is great for developing vocabulary. The proper name version of the King James Bible is even better for developing vocabulary. I would not require them to be graduated as cohorts and be held back by the others. That's just not a fair thing. I would have tests of mastery, and the teachers would graduate them. If they're ready for the next subject material, the next grade, they get it. I wouldn't have these breaks in the summer. I'd have a year-round school. I mean, certainly I want it to be flexible, so if a child needs to be helping out with the family or doing something with the family, then the child is excused. You know, take a semester off, take a quarter off, take a year off. The family is in charge. The family are the bosses. I think the parents should go in there, and if the parents don't like what the teacher's doing, then the parents can fire the teacher. The parents need to be the bosses. They need to be in charge. I think the focus should be on reading, writing, and arithmetic. I also think that we should be teaching them Latin, Greek. They should be able to learn to read the classics in their original language. We definitely need the NRA in the schools teaching gun safety. I mean, that's about all the NRA is good for at this point. I think they're kind of traitors and treasonous and compromise too much. But I would gladly put the NRA in the schools and tell I mean, if I was in a state and they were dictating requirements, I'd want to know how to balance the checkbook, how to take care of, I'd want home economics, simple sewing, maybe even making soap. I mean, simple cooking. I think all students should be proficient in that, regardless of gender or identification. Gun safety. I think everybody should be able to get that in the schools. Why not? I bet the NRA would do it for free. People might even join the NRA again if that's what their mission was, because at least then the children are raised knowing that you don't touch the guns. You don't touch it unless mommy or daddy are around. Daddy's got to be around before you get the guns. They're locked up. They're safe. I don't advocate that we lock up guns. When I grew up, we didn't lock them up. They just were where they were. We were taught and told, don't touch them. And then at age 10, I was in the NRA safety course. I would like to see college students entering college at a much younger age, like some of my ancestors did, age 15, going to Dartmouth. I would love to see everyone being taught a trade or two trades in the schools. I think that would be wonderful. I don't think anybody needs to go to college. I think the schools need to do their job, and they're doing a lousy job, so firing them would be a proper thing to do at this point, because they've just done a horrible job. If I found out as a parent that I had a libtard and they're teaching my students, I would leave the school. I would quit the school. Again, I think that the public isn't responsible. There's no right to an education, and there shouldn't be a right to an education, because they are never going to give you a free education that allows you to challenge them. They'll always give you a dumbing down education that requires you to submit to them or to worship them, to practice that religion known as statism. I think the public education system, when it started off, was okay, but I hate public education so much that I just assume get rid of it all. As far as financial aid for these universities, it would be gone. I don't even think I'd give them nonprofit status, but of course there would be no internal revenue service anymore. The playing field would be indeed level, in which case they don't have to worry about income tax. We'd be running the government off the duties and tariffs collected at the borders, like it was that George Washington set it up to do. And it could be a small government. It doesn't have to be huge like it is today. When I was growing up, 1 out of every 7 of us worked for the automobile industry. Today it's probably 1 out of 7, maybe 1 out of every 6, maybe 1 out of every 5 work for the government. There's probably a CIA asset, as they like to call them, agent every mile and a half in this country today. Why do we need that? Well, I don't think we need it. Now, there are no religious tests anymore to be elected to office anymore. And there was no religious test in the Constitution because the states all had religious tests. And states had different flavors of religion, different denominations. And so in order to get along, they had to allow that flexibility at the federal level, which is the way it should be. The main thing is that there should be no state-sanctioned religion, no one religion given preference over the others. However, I'm kind of prone to what we used to call Christianity, what it was before it got so off the wall as it is today. But when you eliminate the Treasury Department, or at least the IRS, then you don't have to have nonprofit status for your churches. You don't have to worry about deductions or donations or gifts or anything like that because there's nobody taxing you. That's the way we ought to go. We had roads, everything. I don't really like the monopolies given the railroad companies, but that did help develop the nation quite a bit. I don't think we're anywhere near a republic, and we're not a democracy. We're almost mob rule. We're actually a socialist nation headed very rapidly to communism. I would say our State Department is communist. That's all. It's been that for a long time. What we need more than anything else are our militias. We're headed for some real bad times. Without our militias, we're going to be caught with our pants down. If we form the militias, if the states form their militias and they're volunteers, then we can have self-rule once again. We can have self-control. We can not have so many professional police. I think it's a good idea to have them. Get them out of those black uniforms and make them wear baby blue or full-strength blue or that beautiful blue of those butterfly wings, those poisonous butterflies. I think that's when we have the thin blue line again. But I think also you get the militia. And when you have the militia would be the strong arms, if you will, to aid an officer in time of need. And I think the officers would be a lot safer, for sure. The sheriff would be a lot safer as well, and he'd get to exercise his authority properly. We need our militias. The only time in the entire Constitution the word necessary occurs is a well-regulated militia being necessary for the safe, orderly conduct of society is what the message is, that the rights shall not be infringed. So when I read it, I look at it and say, we no longer have a Second Amendment. If you don't have a militia, you don't have a Second Amendment. What's the benefits? What are the benefits of the militia? Well, the first thing is you've got defense and local, and every able-bodied man, typically age 20 and above, is part of the militia. And by law, local law, typically, he's required to have a long arm, a short arm, and a short sword, and 200 rounds of ammunition for, well, he probably should have 200 rounds for each one of his arms. And he pays for that himself. Now, as far as uniforms, that's another thing. But again, this is a volunteer outfit. It's self-rule. I don't think we tax anything. As a matter of fact, I think that what we should have is an exemption. If a member of the militia wants to go buy arms, ammunition, anything associated with his duty, he should be able to get a requisition order from the quartermaster. And that order will say he's not required to pay any taxes on it. No Pitney Bowes 11% tax for conservation, no 10, whatever it is, 8, 7, 8, 10% sales tax on it, not even on the ammunition. That's an infringement. So I think all of that goes away, and that'll drop the price of arms and ammunition by at least 11% before, get rid of the sales tax of 8%, and maybe 9%, and then get rid of the Pitney Bowes tax of 11%. So that's 20% cheaper. That's a good thing. We are so far off the mark. We have missed the mark. We have sinned. Our founders gave us a perfect form of government, and we blew it. We need to roll back to just before, in my estimation, March 5th of 1813. And that's a good place to start from. That will give us our core and our foundations. Fire all these senators elected by the people. They got to go back to coming from the state legislators. The state governments must be represented, or there is no republic. Fire all these congressmen. It has to be a voluntary position. We give them a simple per diem and the franking privilege. No pay, no benefits. Oh, and your state senator? I mean, your senators that come from the states representing their state governments, let their governor sign their checks so they know who they're beholden to. And they're subject to instant recall when a majority of their fellow state legislators decide to fire them and recall them. That way, when they don't vote the way the state government wants them to vote, they're out. There won't be any more mavericks and buttheads like we've had in the past. No wonder the treason is so rampant. No wonder we're so far off the mark. All right, I've gone long, didn't intend to do that. Going to call this afternoon musings. Y'all take care. Call your governor. Tell them you want a militia. You want to be part of the militia. That the militia is tasked with keeping the peace, basically. Quelling insurrections. Defending against invasions. Defending our borders. We need that. We need the order that a well-regulated militia will bring us. A man will have to behave himself in order to be able to keep his good standing with his militia. Good day.